Okay, we are good to go.
Hello,
Great. Hi.
I am Laura Kelly. I live in Northeast Tam here on Cape Cod, and I'm really happy to been offered the opportunity to chat with you folks on Martha's Vineyard. I feel as though we have a lot of the same ecology, and are reliant on resources that are quite similar. And that's what I focus my, free headspace in, that kind of a zone. And moving forward here on Cape Cod with some language that is working. Yeah. So I wanted to share it with you in hopes that we can uh, band together and work together and see if Martha's Vineyard wants to get involved. So that specifically is I think it was 2022 in June. The select board in Orleans contacted me and said, we just voted to ban fertilizer in town. And I thought, you know what, you can't do that. But we can change the wording and create something. And so I got to play with the boards in Orleans, and we created something called a home rule petition that is for reduction of fertilizer use. And that is now bill number 487 at the State House. Just got out of the joint committee favorably, which is huge. And then it was in 2023, October 17th, just this last fall, we had created a pesticide reduction home rule petition that passed October 17th in Orleans by 68%. So this was a town vote. It was on the warrant, and the citizens voted both of these home rule petitions to go to the State House through Representative Sarah Peak. And that is bill number 4481. And these bills last 2 years, which means they have a time limit. So they need to go through the House and get to the governor and get signed in order to actually become law in the town. And so I've taken that same language. It's only 4 pages long. It's called the pesticide. I chose pesticides. Why? Because there's more science that proves that pesticides, that is herbicides, fungicides, rodenticides, insecticides, are harmful. Like, they're really creating more harm than we realized. And it wasn't until we did the fertilizer one and we were like, good, nitrogen and phosphorus, this is great. Let's reduce this in our town. There's one level. But boy, pesticides is just so much more harmful. We started reading the science the next year and it was like, so I decided to just keep moving this pesticide one a little along to other towns. So right now, Eastham votes, it's on the town warrant in Eastham May 4th for the citizens to vote on a pesticide reduction home rule petition. May 6th is Harwich. May 20th is Wellfleet. The fall, I also went to Dennis and Brewster, and they wish to do this in their fall elections, and I will be bringing it to Truro as well for the fall. After that, again, I'm a year out in my head. So, but regardless, it's go time now. We're educating town citizens about the 4 pages of language, and enough so they will have feelings, strong enough to vote one way or the other. And we took a lot of the language straight from MDAR, the Massachusetts Department of Agricultural Resources, so from the state itself, because it's going to the state to become law. So we thought of that ahead of time, real common sense, clever way. Let's see, there's a couple things in this warrant. It's hard. I don't know what level we're at. I'm just going to say really briefly, pesticides are so harmful. Why? Because they travel. I find it most unfair because if my neighbor uses pesticides, I am exposed to it, whether it be the air, the water, or the soil. This is happening. How do we know? Because we give a mouse, a rodent aside, and our hawks and owls. I mean, they're 99%. Do you know Wild Care? It's in Eastham. It's a place where we can bring, smaller animals and birds and such and to get healed. My friend Stephanie works there. She says, Laura, 99% of all the birds that come here have a rodent asides and sometimes combinations of them in their bodies. We're testing for them now, and it is almost 100%. I'm shocked that that kind of stats just gets me to, drives me to keep going, try to educate another town. So what I call this unintended consequences. We don't intend to hurt our hawks and our owls. We intend to hurt the mouse and the rats. But because nature is doing its thing, we are absolutely harming more than we realize. Pesticides live longer. They go farther. They say science educated us. It's a foot a day it travels. So if you put something on your land, an herbicide on your property, it's traveling a foot a day. That's without water, and that's in our sandy soil. And so if we have all these zoning laws, 100-foot buffer zone, you can't do this, and 50-foot buffer zones, you can't do that. This is vertical. I mean, this is horizontal. Why aren't we talking vertical when that's the direction of gravity? So if all of a sudden we have 100-foot buffer zones to water, you can't spray anything. But when our drinkable water source is 25 feet below us and we're still spraying away, my mind is like, the common sense is, whoosh, so I'm really trying to craft language that becomes solid in the state of Massachusetts. So again, trickles down to our towns, but we've got to be grassroots, right? How do you get to the top? You start at the bottom. So we created this language through Orleans. Orleans has passed a fertilizer reduction home rule petition and a pesticide reduction home rule petition. I'm taking the pesticide reduction home rule petition and going to neighboring towns. I believe that most of you folks have this language in your emails. It's only 4 pages long. There are some exceptions, right? So to let you know, this is for exterior pesticide use only. That means outside pesticides. You can still spray yourself. You can still spray your family, your kids, your dogs, your pets, and anything inside your home. That is allowed according to this home rule petition. But it's the outside pesticides because it's proven to travel. If your plant does not absorb, which doesn't absorb 100% all the time, it travels a foot a day. It either goes in the air and we breathe it in or gets the ozone, again, or soil or water, right? So that's why it's a first baby step, because we want these things to pass. So you can't start at the top and say, we want this ban town-wide. Happy day. It's never going to pass. So we really, crafted something like a first baby step, and it is moving forward. So this is where we're really hopeful to actually, for the first time in history, get on the desks and have a conversation with our state legislature that down here in Cape Cod, we need to be treated differently. And again, in the islands, when I say Cape Cod, I incorporate in my head all of us. It's Barnstable County. Ultimately, we want this language to be county-wide. So that's why I want to go to neighboring towns and get them involved. So the state sees, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10 towns are ready for this now, And what is now? I'm giving myself 2 years to really knock on doors and hopes that people will citizens vote on it and care enough about themselves and their neighbors to reduce the use. We're just reducing outside pesticide use only. Again, once it gets to the state, they're going to manipulate the wording. They're going to throw it back. If it gets signed into law by our governor within 2 years, then it'll come back to us. It's going to be different. But this is a good start. Again, we took the language from the state, so we're hoping the state actually passes it. There's some exceptions. There's number 6 on page 2. Exceptions are insect repellents for personal household use, pets, flea tick sprays, kitchen laundry bath disinfectants, products labeled, for mold or mildew, inside your house, again, are fine. And there's also a waiver. Now, this is interesting because, whenever you have like something so solid, you got to have ways in and ways out, right? So we put it there. So again, when the golf course comes up and says, what? We can't live without pesticides, or whatever their words are, there is a waiver. This waiver is 1 page long, taken from MDR themselves. And basically it just says it's the date, the location, the product, the basics, how often, how much, when, where, what, why, 1 page, happy day, it's done. This is in the home rule petition itself at your town manager's office. Any homeowner, business, whatever it is, mosquito control, can come and sign this waiver, right? It's on their town manager's desk. Then the town manager gives it and talks about it with their select board members to decide if it should be allowed for whatever reasons, And so that's how exemptions would happen currently written in this home rule petition. So again, for huge things like golf courses, Orleans does not have a golf course, but I'll tell you, Wellfleet does, Harwich does. So we'll see how these towns do this month of May, knowing there is an exemption involved in the language and can be used, readily available. So at the moment, and I say at the moment, in general, this costs the towns and the taxpayers nothing. This is a reduce the use of pesticides only. We have so much support. I've gone to larger organizations, not like, Orleans Pond Coalition, Brewster Pond Coalition, things like that for sure. Boards in towns. I'm so impressed. They're really stepping up. You get on the agenda. You know how long it takes. You give a presentation. You wait for them to vote. You go a second time and a third time before you even get anywhere. We have so many boards on board, no pun intended. We've got the Barnstable County Assembly of Delegates. That's 15 members. That's 1 member from every Cape Cod town. That was 100% unanimous. They want this to move forward at this time. They wrote 2 pages. I'm so fascinated. This all can be found on the Orleans town website. If you go to Orleans website for their town, and just on the, what is it called? The subject line there, you press in pesticide. There's pages and pages and pages. And there's the left-hand side column, and you click on all those things. There's the warrant article itself, 4 pages long for pesticide reduction. Then there's frequently asked questions. Then there's support letters. Barnstable County commissioners, there's 3 of them. Unanimous. On Cape Cod Commission support letter, huge. APCC, the Association of Preservation of Cape Cod support letters. So there's so many support letters. You'll get that language. You'll see our tests that we rely on. There's hundreds of studies we've put on that link, and you can see where we get the language from. It's right there. It's proven in science. So it goes on and on. There's presentations, there's handouts that I've created a 1-page handout. If you read from top to bottom on that 1 page, you will know how comfortable you feel and which way to vote. Trying to simplify, trying to be common sense about this. It is our environment, and it is up to us to protect not just our environment, but our environment for ourselves. That's the ultimate. We know this is harmful. We see the science. People are getting sick. And how can we think that if we keep up the pace we're on right now, that our resources are not going to be harmed? And really, like right now, it doesn't cost us anything. Why are we waiting till it does? So these are all precautionary things or ways. And I have 1 line that I've created and I try to speak. It is, people have a right to not be exposed to pesticides from other people's properties. Bees have a right to not be exposed to pesticides from other people's properties. And ponds have a right. We could say oysters have a right to not be exposed to pesticides from other people's properties. It goes on. It is happening. We don't understand it because we can't see it. But science is absolutely telling us this. It's even in the Massachusetts website. It's in the USGS website. It travels in water. Well, guess what's all around us, people? It's water, So I don't understand why we're not acting more and doing more, but I think it just needs a voice. So if we could be a voice and then get the voters behind the voice, how can it not work? I mean, it's right there, So that's the gist of it. I mean, there's probably 1,000 questions. I'd love to open it up. I do want to say one more thing. We have another, I don't want to say, document that I created. It is a way to say, it's one sentence. Would you like to help reduce pesticides? If you can say yes, sign this. It's a change.org. And we have almost 4,000 signatures. I just started it last summer for kicks. And now I'm like, wait a second, this could actually go to the governor and be a whole nother piece of proof that this is what we want down here. So again, if that could be sent out to everybody, just read it. If it feels right to you, please sign it. Please share it with your loved ones. It is powerful. It'll become its own thing. The home rule petitions will go or not, but this backs it up. You know what I mean? So it's another valid document. So thank you for allowing me to be here today and invite me to Martha's Vineyard. I'm only up the street. I'd love an excuse to come down and share more together,
Yeah, that would be great. All right, questions. I see Sandy's hand up first. Gotta unmute yourself. Unmute.
You really want to hear me? Okay. I skimmed the website very briefly, and I'm just curious if there is a place to go where you have a list of the actual banned pesticides, a specific list.
Well, considering it's never happened in history, don't know what is it that you're specifically.
Well, I mean, for example, we do have tick treatment in our yard, and I'm trying to see, am I using something that is not that dangerous to get rid of make sure we don't get ticks on the dog or us?
So
where can I check
oh, sorry.
I just want to know where I can check the products that I use, what they're considered.
So absolutely any pesticide is to be not used if you use it outside. So you got tick and mosquito control. It absolutely is going to affect that. But you get to do your own research with your own company and see what they're using, right? So you get that piece of paper or document in your hands. This is what we're using, because there's going to be surfactants, there's going to be active ingredients, there's going to be, and they're going to say, oh, it's derived from chrysanthemums. It's totally fine. Well, yeah, it is derived from chrysanthemums, but then why do you have to add all these other things into it? So there's going to be a level, you will read it and hopefully understand more what you're actually using. And then what you do is you seek local companies that are using something less harmful, potentially, depending where you're at. I'll tell you, Pure Solutions out of Chatham is a great company, almost, God, I'm going to say 15 years old. I've been relying on, I'm a landscape designer on Cape Cod, and I'm completely non-toxic. I've got 11 crews, and I would never ask anybody, if I'm not going to use it, I'm not going to ask anybody to use it. Pure Solutions uses peppermint. So science discovered that mosquitoes don't like peppermint. Yay! So if you actually smell like peppermint, get some peppermint essential oil, right? But oil is going to stain your clothes. So you want to water it down, you get it on your hands, put it in your hair and on your shoes. If you have the scent of peppermint, a mosquito will come and turn around and go away. So we don't kill things, we deter pests. That way we're not harming anything beneficial in nature. So it's that kind of common sense that we want to do per property. So they come with a backpack sprayer and they've got their peppermint essential oil water-based product. It still looks like it's like this, you know, like you would think a common pesticide company is in your yard, but really they're actually, your property smells like peppermint. They go around the circumference of your house and then the, you know, outskirts of your land, and they come once every 3 weeks because that's the cycle of life that a mosquito starts reproducing. So you're actually then lessening the population of mosquitoes around here because you're deterring them. And I think there's an answer for everything. We just have to seek it. And because it works on my land, it's not 100% that it's going to work on yours. So you have to try it. And maybe you do every 2 weeks. I don't know if you're on a bog versus a do you know what I mean? In the woods, it's going to have a different environment. So we need to keep seeking what works in each individual situation. But again, technically, if you smell like peppermint or your property smells like peppermint, you're deterring a mosquito. It's not coming around. And ticks don't like citrus. So there's things already, if you work with nature, like how is nature combating nature? Like that's where I go. And what worked 100 years ago before all the man-made synthetics were created, that's where I start learning and listening and bringing it into hopefully our new daily lives. You know, it's just a shift of a habit. And I know it's hard to shift a habit. I get it. But, you know, you're either in or you're out. You know, you're either want to do it or you do it. Don't be afraid. Take the first year and have trial periods and try things out. And once you got it forever. You know, you're all set. So it's kind of worth the growing pains, I say, to go through. Good question. Thank you. Did that help, Sandy?
A little.
A little.
Anybody else have questions?
Did Sandy have a follow-up with that? I'm sorry.
No, I think she's good. Michael,
Okay.
I see Michael's hand. You muted. Muted, Michael. Muted. Michael. Hello. Earth to Michael.
Cute.
I think we may have worked together to stop Eversource from spraying with herbicides on our power lines. And I remember at that time you were just all over them, and you don't seem to have changed a bit.
I'll tell you, thank you for recognizing that was a while ago. I'm still playing around on that topic. It's not out of my purview at all, but this is, again, the grassroots way. If we could have per town say to the state, we don't want this, what happens if Eversource comes down the line? I think that's the day you call the police and say, guess what? Our town doesn't want this, go home.
The herbicides were particularly dangerous to us because they sprayed them, they actually went down into the watershed. And then because they were so heavy, they stayed there and actually killed a lot of our bottom dwellings, seafood.
I'm sorry.
They were real, but we could never get around what you did. I mean, getting past the state, we always lost out to the government who wanted the power lines to be served. We wanted them to come in, as I recall, and we would even let them graze their livestock.
Yes.
To get rid of it. But it was a great adventure years ago.
Right.
But you seem in temperament to be time invariant, so keep it up.
Thank you very much for the support. It's not over. It still lives on. Eversource is still maintaining vegetation power lines. They are mowing more throughout Cape Cod. And if we take care of our land, they come around the corner and vegetation is down, they will spray less. So that is my one thing to tell everybody. If you want to mow your own, power line source per town, throw some money in a pocket and have the towns do it. That is a huge way to do it. Abutters, they own the land. Abutters can contact Eversource directly and say, no, do not do that on my land. And legally they cannot. So
You will find people who are sympathetic or militant, I guess I could even say, on this issue with the Tisbury Board of Health. If you'd ever find yourself walking through our neighborhood.
bless you.
Laura, can
Jerry.
you explain what you did with the goatscaping?
Of course.
Was that a whole initiative or?
Yeah, my friend
experiment?
Stephanie's got goats. And I said, hey, you want to come to Harwich? So she brought like 17 of them. And so she's got this fence, just rolls it out, puts a couple of stakes in, it hooks up to a box. It looks like a suitcase. She opens it up, boom, solar, happy day. Makes a gate, puts the goats in. She just trucks them over. They're great, you know? And then there it is. So whatever that fence line is, you could just literally pick it up and move it the next day, you know? So we did this Harwich with Harwich Conservation Trust. That's HCT, and Michael Locke is his name. And yep, got the newspapers out, proved we were hand pruning and we were goat pruning, and it works.
What's
It's
the
not that
name
it
of the
doesn't
goat
work.
thing, Melinda?
The goats actually eat everything, as you know. So if
Yeah.
you do have some, you know, low bush, you know, oaks or blueberries or whatever, for me, I want to keep the good and eliminate the bad. So hand pruning is the most effective way, or even just mowing it like a foot tall allows the ground covers there. You don't want to go lower than a foot because then it just will turn into a dust bowl. That's ineffective. So the goats, it works. It's not that it doesn't work. It worked too well in a way. They ate the good and the bad. You know? So there is no 100% fits this, you know, that would be hand pruning, but selective is the word. Selective pruning is the answer, but who's going to do that per, you know, backbone of, you know, our, you know, property, our land, our, you know, Martha's Vineyard in Nantucket and Cape Cod. So it's just a big scale, you know, that's all. It's not that we can't do it. We actually have to, it'll take a year and then we're doing it again, you know, is my forethought. But goats are great. Goats are great with poison ivy and other invasives. They even like, cat nine tails and all these things that we don't, you know, that are really harmful to us. They keep spreading. We can't keep up. And, you know, goats will eat it. They love it. They need to eat things. You know, we keep giving them these old Christmas trees, 3 months old. Well, what about the fresh stuff coming up right now? I mean, it's just so much more healthy for them.
Our land bank has a whole flock of goats that they move around to different properties as needed. The electric
Right.
fence, everything.
So I brought this to the state and they laughed at me. And I brought it again and again and again with, you know, photographs and proof of, you know, befores and afters and yada, yada. And they're like, are you telling us we should tell Eversource to use goats because we're not going to? And I'm like, yes, that's what I'm saying. And they can't fathom it. You know, Eversource is just laughing at us, you know, and like, we're going to go get goats to do Cape Cod. I'm like, yeah, you know, so we've got to take matters into our own hands, or what are we expecting? They're going to come the way that it's legal. And what's legal is herbicides. So I think if we take matters in our own hands and lessen our own impact, that's where we can gain ground on that matter. You know, we really have to figure it out for ourselves. Otherwise, of course, they're going to come down and take care of it their own way. You know, I like electricity. Oh my gosh, I'm the first person to be like, thank you. Thank you, Eversource. I like when my lights are on. But there's got to be another way that we can have our lights on and not harm our natural resources at the same time. That's just where my value is. And we've got it again. One person can't do it. We need to do it together, you know? So like you say, this group's got the goats. It's just keep them going down the power lines. Just put them out every day. Another, you know, section, another section, another section. Eversource is going to show up and they can't use that, you know, 2,000 gallons. They can only use the 2 gallons, you know, because there's not enough vegetation. But that's such a cool way to handle it. So good for you guys having some goats. That's so great.
Yeah, we also have a fertilizer ban. Michael, I think, was the force behind that. Why don't you tell her what that is?
Yeah, so fertilizer reduction home rule petition. So we know our ponds are less swimmable?
Laura, we went with nitrogen first because our congressmen were able to get us an opportunity to have home rule for just removing nitrogen. So what you had to do though, we had to get all the towns to agree to our plan, which was, you would have thought it was impossible because we needed
How
to
many
get,
towns is that?
we need to get, this is the entire island of Martha's Vineyard.
6.
6 towns. Thank
There
you.
were 6 towns and we had to get something like 60% of the vote in each town. I mean, when was the time you can remember the towns agreeing all to something like that? I mean, I was too old at that time to wait that out. But sure enough, they all voted. We worked a lot with the golf courses who really use a lot of nitrogen, but they conserve it in some very, very aggressive ways. And they waste none of it because it's a big cost for them. And so they helped us do these regs, which were enormously well received. And we trained all of the groundskeepers. Now, I will say that other people have taken this up, but we did have training programs for the groundkeepers and all that. But I think the ones who are leading this right now is the Conservation Society. I think they have a program doing it here on the island. So it's still alive and the regs have not changed. They really work, but getting what you've gotten, which is the actual authority, like we couldn't do gardens. We could only do lawn, so there were, like you're facing boundaries, right? We had boundaries too, but it was very, very successful. That's all I can say. And it's still in place.
Great. We have created a fertilizer home rule petition that passed in the town of Orleans, and that was fall of 2022. It's now just moved off of the desk of the the Joint Committee of Environment and Resources and the State House. Yay, huge. So that specific fertilizer reduction home rule petition states exterior fertilizer use. Why? Because it's man-made synthetic, right? So what we want to do is use like leaf compost. There's no reason why you can't grow a lawn, a garden, a tree, you name it, without leaf compost. Leaf compost is the answer, not like high nitrogen, goat or chicken, you name it. That again, it's about reducing our dose, right? We need to reduce the dose of nitrogen and phosphorus.
Oh yeah.
So using a leaf compost versus any animal compost, that's the way. And we're just trying to get off the man-made synthetics. So you see what you just said really resonated with me with educating the those that golf, the superintendents. We also, if we could educate the people at like Ace Hardware, garden centers, stuff like that, to just shift when somebody walks up with a bag of some, man-made synthetic, say, here's the alternative and it's $1 cheaper.
Yeah.
Like if we could get it's about, so golf courses are great. I know they do a lot, but homeowners is more. There's more of that.
The landscapers were really good. People who own the nurseries and things. We came back and gave them a big banner with our regs on it. And they were actually greeted us extraordinarily warmly because all of their customers wanted 10, 10, 10, the old stuff.
Right.
And we had very different requirements for the fertilizers composition and source. And they just appreciated it. And once we had them on board and the golf course was on board, it went pretty well. I mean, at least it's still being done. It's slowed down a little bit with the COVID. I mean, that our whole training program, we're building up post COVID, to be fair. But there are a lot of people now doing it. I mean, let's face it, there's a lot of awareness. And it sounds like you've done a great job with the state in general when it comes to getting their approval to do this. Because I can say that their reception to us wasn't terribly warm. And still, because the Department of Agriculture controlled a lot of what we were doing, and we really had to take control from them. So we were able to do that working with our representatives as long as we did take lawn. Didn't touch anything alive.
Quite a few years ago, we had 3 applications for new golf courses on Martha's Vineyard that was before the Martha's Vineyard Commission.
Yep.
And the only one that got approved, mostly because of the location, it wasn't right next to a water body. But anyways, if they claim, or we basically told them, we'll approve this if you don't use chemicals. So they are claiming, and I think they are a chemical-free organic golf course.
I think they're very famous for that.
It's a beautiful
That's
That
true.
golf
course.
course.
Yep,
Correct.
I think they try to teach other courses all over the country how
Right.
to do it.
That's right. Yes, I'm familiar with that years back. So
Yeah.
yes, I used Martha's Vineyard Golf Course, for example, is like in the town of Dennis, they have 2 golf courses. And so when the time comes, I'm always referring. So thank you and everybody, superintendents involved in the golf courses, Martha's Vineyard, for having this as a actual hands-on example for everybody to follow. It's working and it's beautiful out there. I've been, and see the different heights of grasses and they sway in the wind. It's just gorgeous to look at as you're out there golfing, it's a beautiful golf course.
It
is
sounds,
more
Laura,
natural.
that the real lesson is that the steadfastness. The fact, must have been years ago when we were talking about this, right?
Yes.
And all of a sudden the world has changed. It's been beaten to death.
Anna, I see your hand is up.
Yes, hi. So the big elephant in the room, of course, regarding nitrogen is the septic systems. And DEP, recently admitted that 70 to 80% of the nitrogen pollution in the ponds that is destroying our ponds comes from septic systems. And that they have been forcing us to put in over the past 27 years, ever since 1995, forcing us at a threat of $500 a day fine for non-compliance. So in other words, they have been fully aware. Their scientists have been telling them ever since 95 that Title V was going to cause an immense nitrogen pollution problem. They have known this, and yet they have been forcing us to do it. Now they're finally admitting that, as I said, 70 to 80% of that nitrogen pollution comes from septic systems. But they're still in there. And what I'm wondering about is home rule regarding that. There must be a way that we have a right to protect our water, both our drinking water and our ponds. And it actually says right in the Title V, right in the law books, it says, essentially what it says here is the legally designated health authority of any town may adopt any rules and regulations containing requirements stricter than those contained in the Title V code. So in other words, it seems to me that the local boards of health have the right to protect us against the nitrogen pollution, that they would have the right to allow systems that have proven to not put in nitrogen into the groundwater. And yet we find that the boards of health are not allowing us to do that unless they follow the DEP rule that it has to be a DEP approved system. So there's something they're forced, and those of course are costing $40,000 to $50,000 or much more if there's a difficult site like mine is. I have a Title V system. It would probably cost at least $100,000 for me to put in a nitrogen reducing DEP approved system. because of the, there's no access to the back there. There's no, I lose tons of trees and shrubs and gardens. If I were to put in according to what the DEP wants me to put in. So there's something very fundamentally wrong with this, because we can put in a system that costs certainly less than $20,000, probably less than $15,000, that has proven to be equally effective. So I want the boards of health to understand that they have the right to surpass the rules of, not supplant, but to surpass, to do better than the Title V, than what the DEP is allowing. So, Michael, could you address this question, and why are you not acting on what you're supposed to be acting on? We can't hear you. We can't hear you, Michael.
You're muted. You're muted, Michael. Still muted. Is he
I
talking?
got it.
Yeah. there you go.
Anna?
Yeah.
Good. Good to see you.
You too.
We've had this discussion. I think I could just hold up my hand and yell "for," and that would, you've heard what I'm going to tell you before, and we kind of go through the same things again. But here's the issue, and it's not that I have any quarrel with anything you said. The Title V systems, in my opinion, are probably certainly almost 90% of the source of the nitrogen in our estuaries. I mean,
Yep.
the problem, we got it.
Yep.
We are trying to do it. What you're proposing is probably more cost effective than what we're doing. The problem and you're right on getting, I think there's a chance maybe to get home rule for this. What you don't have that the Board of Health and the state would need is what we call a standard stock keeping unit, so that we could do the test, so we could do the, oh, Linda, oh, I'm sorry, so that we could do the quality control
Yeah.
the state asks for,
Yeah.
which means that each of your units have to be standardized. So when you say just doing something at home sort of thing, right? It's not that. For us, is for the system that you want to get into and help, it has to produce a standard product that you can do what's called release specting on it, so that each of them will remove 85% of the nitrogen, right?
Right, and that's what it does, and that's what it has proven.
But you'd have to prove that to the state that it can do that reproducibly. If you put this block next to this block and color the whole thing orange, you'll get the same thing every time, and you'll get, that was hyperbole, by the way.
And the only way to prove that, of course, is to install them and then read them. And this needs to be done on the island with Vineyard control, Vineyard testing, not DEP involvement.
I think we could do it, but I don't know if you have the standardized product that we need.
I do, and you know that, Michael.
No, take this off the line, but you've got me. I will help you. I understand free enterprise. I'd love to do it, but it's got to be something where there's real control, a manufacturing process.
Of course, there has to be.
We can go back and see that it's been.
Okay. We've had this conversation a number of times, and we have a guest here with us.
Nothing ever changes. Nothing ever changes. That's the trouble.
We're moving closer in that direction.
No, we're not. We're not at all moving closer. The only thing that stands now is that we have to pay $40,000 to $50,000. That's the way it stands now. Yep. And that is not acceptable.
All right.
Right.
Work on that.
Right. Yes. Right. But I mean, where's the action? I want to do it tomorrow. I've got all the wood chips. I've got everything ready to install it. That way you could see for yourselves how it works. And I swear to you, it will cost 60 to 80% less than what the state is now requiring. We've got to move on this, because every day we're putting in all the nitrogen pollution. Forget about the lawns and the gardens and stuff. It's a very minor amount. We
Yeah.
don't need to spend much energy. That has been done. Now we need to address the nitrogen that we are all putting out in our Title V systems.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And that,
John, I see your hand is up.
Yes, thanks. Thank you, Laura, for your presentation. I did just want to say something about the exchange between Anna and Michael. I'm wondering whether the two of you would be, I think there's a reason other than complete idiosyncrasy that this keeps coming back up again. And given that, I wonder whether the two of you might confer in another context and
Love to.
but come up with an agreement about what you each would need to present in the, for example, the context of a Water Alliance meeting, so that we could have a fruitful conversation to move it ahead. In other words, come to agree about what's already been acknowledged, what's already been established, what is it that needs to be done to move it forward, and then maybe we and others who might attend that meeting could help facilitate that. So that's that. And then,
So-
Laura, I want to thank you so much and applaud you for what you're doing. And also, Michael, you and your colleagues in retrospect, I don't know that I had been aware of those efforts. I'm wondering what you've got, Laura, in the way of an inventory of precedents that you can bring to bear. I mean, for example, even on the subject of goats, there are municipalities, including large cities, that employ goats in, public parks and so on. They're contracting with people who have goats to do the work. And so why it would be scoffed at as some kind of out of left field notion in Massachusetts may be just a lack of awareness, may even be a lack of awareness that there could be municipalities that are larger than the towns of Cape Cod and the islands that are doing this to good effect. And so that might help, get over the hump with that. And then just as an aside, there's news that came out recently of some intrepid scientists that very generously gave ticks a choice of options of where to go and where not to go. And where they didn't want to go was where this research team had put drops from glands of ants. It turns out that ants are producing a pheromone that ticks don't like. And so they can nail this down more precisely and then synthesize it. It could be apropos your point about keeping them away rather than using toxic means. That this could be a very useful thing that ants have already come up with, obviously for their own self-interest. Then the other thing was, I thought if there was going to be more along this line here on the island, that given that the Vineyard is the majority of Dukes County and the rest of it is the town of Gosnold, so they're the 7 towns, that maybe the Vineyard could lead with a countywide effort. And I was wondering whether there's any precedents elsewhere in Massachusetts for this being done at a countywide level. Thanks.
Yeah, great addition to the conversation. Thank you very much. Yeah, as far as so Marblehead did some language over 10 years ago, I'm gonna say 12 years ago, and that didn't get very far. A town in Western Mass, I think it was Sudbury, also didn't get very far. We're really trying to just, knock on the door again and, get towns involved. This is valuable language. It could work. It's not that it can't work. We just have to be stronger. And I think the only way to be stronger is power in numbers. The only reason why it wouldn't work is if, the way I see it is one town said yes. And I believe the state could just be like squash, just squash it. It's only one town. Push it under the rug like they did in the past with other towns. The the way I see it is the only way it's going to move forward is if another town and another town and you know what I mean, in another year it's somebody else and somebody, you know, then all of a sudden the state's got to do something, right? So I feel like this is valuable enough language to keep the conversation on the table at the State House season after season. You know, we've got 3 town meetings this spring, maybe 2 or 3 more next fall, then the spring after. You know, who knows? You know what I mean? I'd love to keep this ball going. So it is more than just getting squashed at the State House. It's an actual conversation. That's the only thing that I can think of is power and numbers prevail, right? It takes a community and, you know, that kind of bigness in order to even be listened to. Like I said, Marblehead tried and you just get squashed. Sunderland tried and it just got squashed. So again, if it's another town, all of a sudden, I think we can actually, you know, have a real good go at it. Especially since science is proving, I mean, our ponds, our oysters, I could go on. There's so much evidence. You know, it was April 6th. There was a fire in Dennis and they used fire foam. I was on a Monday. And on Tuesday, Harwich town water was shut down for 3 days. All businesses, restaurants were closed. People had to go out and actually purchase bottled water at stores. The stores, it was mayhem. And there was no water on the shelves. They ran out. It was the thing, you know, and that is how precious, just proved how precious our resources are and how easy they can be harmed. You know, all of a sudden it did cost the town. A business was lost. People had to go out and purchase water for days to consume. You know, so that is, it's happening. And that was obviously PAFSs, right? And if we're talking PAFSs, we should be talking pesticides. And like Anna said, if we're talking, you know, septic, we should be talking nitrogen and phosphorus. Granted, septic is larger, right? It's about a dosage. And if you reduce the use, you're making a difference. So I don't want to say one is necessarily better than the other. It's got to be, you know, don't forget the other one. Because, okay, we did all our septic and then we're still penetrating ourselves with high nitrogen and phosphorus. That wasn't the point, you know? So we have to keep these things together, even though they're different. You know, it gets messy because fertilizers feed and pesticides kill. So they're different, but they need to be talked about at the same time when it comes to harming our resources. You know, so, you know, to some people it's confusing and to others it's obvious, you know, so it's a little bit of a game sometimes, but I think now is as good a time as any because the science is there. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a biologist. Most people aren't, but yet it is, I can read. Yeah. And I read this. And I say, oh my gosh, I'll be damned, you know, like it's happening every day and we're consuming and yada, 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 you know, so it just gives me the energy to keep going. So if you folks have any sort of, you know, meetings or time I can give presentations, I can bring pamphlets, I can bring handouts, I can bring, you know, keep educating, like, you know, have the citizens get involved, you know, volunteer places. Please invite me down. I don't care when it is. I will do my best to get there. I feel as right now it's go time. It is go time. One town did it. We are in the State House with 2 documents. Other towns can take the same language. It's on that Orleans town website, or email me, Sherry. I can give it to you in an email. It's all right there. It's not hard. It's 4 pages long, and there's no reason why we can't. And we, like I say, I feel like it's 2 years. We have a 2-year moment of, you know, we're in the State House and we can get a chance. We can have a chance. You know, could you imagine if it actually worked? We did it. We would do it together. You know, it's the only way it's going to work for Orleans is if other towns join it, or it's just going to go bye-bye. It was just another town that tried. Once every 10 years, it feels like a town tries. So thank you for caring enough to to be here today and talk as a group and keep it going, never stop. Because we're gonna
Thank
keep
you.
drinking the water here.
Sherry sent out all those, the information that you gave her. So we've all seen that. The verbiage is right there. We don't have to make up anything. It's plain. When is the next, when is the event at the Ag Hall, Sherry, that they have every year? That might be a good time for her to come.
The Climate Action Fair is May 19th, and then there's usually one in September or October. I'll have to check that, but that would be a great.
Maybe
Yeah.
the May 19th one, if she's available. Because we just had a major victory here, at least I think so. A lot of there's people out there that don't think so. Our high school wanted to put in a new playing field, and of course they wanted to use artificial turf, full of PFAS. And that battle went on for what, 3 years? And the planning board, voted it down, but they were overruled in the courts. But now the Oak Bluffs Board of Health has passed a ban on artificial turf in the town of Oak Bluffs.
Good. That's huge. It literally, I mean, okay, how can you say this? The sun shines. You can't stop the sun from shining. The rain falls. How could it not, again, follow gravity? We have all our restrictions going this way. Why not this way? Why aren't our restrictions vertical? I mean, it has to get out there. It has to get to the State House. We have to keep, taking care of ourselves. So good. Congratulations. I'm so happy for you. It is the right thing to do. If it's more expensive to do it a different way, if it takes longer to do it a different way, it doesn't matter. You have to do it a different way. So bless you. Good job. It takes 3 years, right? I swear it does. But you got there. That's so cool.
Everything takes long. John, I see your hand up.
Thanks. Again, just wondering about the pragmatics of moving it ahead. I mean, for example, the idea that if the Vineyard did something to start at the county level, because it's not an enormous change from doing the entire Vineyard. Obviously, you'd have to deal with the 6 towns on the island. But I'm wondering, this entity, the Martha's Vineyard Water Alliance, grew out of the Martha's Vineyard Watershed Team. For what it's worth, I never liked the term team because it sounds like, we've got a shortstop, so no thanks. and the alliance is inclusive. But I wonder if one looked at the map that was created originally when Massachusetts was divided into watersheds, or in the case of the Vineyard, the so-called Martha's Vineyard Watershed, whether that overlaid level of grassroots organizing might be useful in facilitating the organization across towns to achieve these goals. And I'm not suggesting that you get into this now to distract yourself from your efforts on Cape Cod, but it's the kind of thing that somebody could take up to spread it further afield, because obviously the more, just as you've just said, that if it's only one town on Cape Cod, it could evaporate. But the more entities involved, the greater the probability that it'll happen at the statewide level. And then again, with respect to precedents, are there precedents elsewhere in the United States for the type of effort that you're doing to restrict or ban pesticides and herbicides, in the same way that I know that there are major municipalities that are employing goats to do the work?
Yeah, so currently, I don't know about other, said towns above an aquifer, 25 feet, blah, 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 doing exactly what we're doing. I don't know this year. Last year, when I did that research, there isn't anybody moving forward like we are. We're really, really changing history right now. I feel like the Orleans is a forerunner, and some towns are leaders and some towns are followers on all different topics. And it's great. They penetrated through, got to the State House, and we just need to, it's like reinforcement, right? Just got to keep pushing up from behind. So to answer your question off the top of my head, I can't think of one other, Florida is so known for their red tides, and that's directly connected to human impact. Is it specifically to outdoor pesticide use? I don't know what their language is right now. So I don't have an answer to that question. I know you asked before and I didn't mean to not answer. I just don't know it.
Yeah.
So it'll get me to do my own research and see if there is another town doing the same thing, and then what language they crafted. I know that NOFA, the Northeastern Organic Farmers Association, out of Connecticut, they have language. And they do, you know, one town at a time kind of thing about lawn care restrictions, specifically for things like you can't apply before April 20th, you know, and October, whatever, 20th or something after October 20th. You know, they have that kind of thing going, dates. I like that to a degree, but as we saw this year, guess what? April 15th here was so cold that if you applied pesticides or fertilizers, your lawn is and your gardens are not absorbing what you're applying, so it's going to run off. And so I think that needs to change to 55 degrees. If that's April 1st or May 1st, who knows? Every year is going to be different, but the soil needs to be 55 degrees in order for vegetation to actually absorb what you're applying it. Or it's a waste. You just wasted money. Well, of course, the landscaper won't think that. It's the first time that landscapes all winter is to throw fertilizer and pesticides down. But anyway, that's just a whole other topic.
Right, I see the Tisbury Board of Health agent. I don't know your name. I'm sorry.
Drew, sorry.
Drew?
I haven't been able to change that. I was curious, Sherry, you might be able to have more information on this, but through the MVC with some of the districts of critical planning concern, don't some towns already have a pesticide ban of some kind in place?
When we did the fertilizer regs, we talked about it, but we really couldn't touch it. I was talking to Laura about this before the meeting started. Because that is regulated through agriculture. Laura, do you want to expound on that a little bit more?
Yeah, so the fertilizer reduction home rule petition that we created is to, again, it's reduced use, lessen the amount. And it's specifically, I love homeowners. I'm a homeowner, but our homeowners are the one that are doing the most harm because there's so many of them, you know, so, I'm hoping that comes back with, you know, these are baby steps, right? Maybe the state says, Massachusetts pesticide state applicators, licensed, you know, people can apply fertilizers because we all know the bag has a label. The label is the law. That is the law. That is, and we still purchase things that have skull and crossbones on it. It's crazy. But that's what we need to go by. The label is the law, and the homeowner just grabs it and uses it. And, you know, sometimes the mentality is more is better and that kind of stuff, where we're really hoping that those that are licensed applicators aren't going to have that mentality. So anyway, my head says it would be great if it comes back with at least cutting out the homeowners, because there's so many more of them than a landscape company. Granted, the landscape companies, they do more properties, you know, so who's to know? That'd be a great study someday if somebody could ever figure that out, but it changes all the time. So it would only be correct in that one moment.
I think there is a certification program that came with the fertilizer ban. So the applicators are supposed to be, you know, certified so that they know exactly what they can and cannot put down and how much.
That's through the Board of Health. We've put on a few, since I've come on, we've put on at least one class, and we're looking at putting on a hands-on one at the MP Golf Club
Great.
in the fall or next spring
Perfect.
to just try to educate more applicators.
That is
So
great.
when we looked at the fertilizers, we, you know, a lot of people were really interested in the pesticides, but at that point in time, they're like, we can't really touch that. So, I love this home rule petition, and I think that this is a really good way for the Vineyard to go for it, because the fertilizer regs, everyone was really on board with that. But I think this is important, especially when you've got the education piece that, you know, this is going to go straight into your groundwater. You are going to drink this, and you know that's really important. That Laura gets the point across. If you can smell it, if you can, you're going to drink. You're being exposed to it, and it's going to go right into your water. So
to
Yep.
answer John's other question, I'd be happy. I know I'm doing a lot here on the Cape currently. May is going to come and go. I've got 3 town meetings in May that I just got my teams out there. We're going to do this. But after May, if there's a time where I can come and, get on the agenda for conservation, Board of Health, and select boards. That's the level. I know you have 7 towns, and that's where we start. Ultimately, I'd like to just go to the Board of Selectmen and say, hey, listen, this is what's going on in other towns. And I just want to talk to you about it. And would you listen? And it starts there. And a lot of times they go to the Board of Health. We don't know what you're, and then it trickles back up to them. Okay, I heard from the Board of Health, they say yes, the CONSCOM says, so-and-so says yes, let's do this, that kind of a thing. So some boards are already there. It's just going to depend. Every town's different, but ultimately a countywide effort would be huge. I mean, that's what I'm hoping Kate-wide, and that's 15 towns. So like I said, I went to 6 towns in 3 months and I got 3 towns. So it's kind of a good average. I got half. So it's going to be different, but again, if I take this on as a 2-year thing, I would absolutely include Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard and hit you up too. Why not? More is stronger. And it's now. If I wait 2 more years, it's not going to matter, So, and yeah, let's think, you guys, it's strategically, because your area better than I do, where to place me and be the liaisons, like I can educate and I can give you the work, but you guys got to do it, you know what I mean? And you need people there to pound the pavement in a way. But yeah, I would absolutely love to say, and Martha's Vineyard too, up at the State House. I mean, how cool would that be? We just handed in not just support letters, but testimonies. I guess April 16th was the date that just we were allowed to write on the pesticide reduction home rule petition, and I sent them a 39-page testimony. So they're getting it. It's now. So I'd love to bring the language and get you guys up to par and have you join the club. There you go. Teams,
Great.
clubs, here we are.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Are there any more questions for Laura? I don't see
Yes,
anybody's hands.
I have another question. Yeah,
Anna,
yeah. So tell us, please, I mean, this is obvious that we want to sign on to this. Do we do it as individuals or as towns, or how does that work? What are we supposed to do in order to do what it is that you want us to do?
Perfect question. Thank you very much. Sherry, if you would take one more email from me and share it to Anna and crew, I can clarify that. There is one thing you can sign as an individual, and then there's Orleans Town website to go to that has all the valuable information that we can just take the language from, and then you as an organization could, and then I can do, reach boards of health if you allow me, which towns to go to for, help me, navigate and such. And like I say, May, I'm tight, but now's a good time to write, to get on agendas for June. It takes time to get on the agenda just to speak, so I don't mind crafting a couple of emails and starting the, if you guys come in and, it's like you sit with me and you speak with me and, as we give the presentation to the select boards and boards of health, that would be great. So Anna, that was a long answer to yes, individual, and yes, townwide, and ultimately countywide. Here we go. Martha's Vineyard.
Right. I mean, it's like, can we sign on right now? It's like, this is something that everybody would agree with, I'm sure. And so I still don't know the mechanism. I read the stuff that you sent that we were, could read ahead of time, but it still doesn't show me, sign here, do this, vote this way. I don't see that. Maybe I just am not understanding.
I'm going to send an email to Sherry, and Sherry will send that email to you, and it will say that. Is that fair? I will craft
Getting another email shortly.
She's gonna answer your question for you in an email.
So is
Okay.
the towns need to agree to this, right? And they will, of course, right? So I don't see what's holding us back from just stepping right in and joining you on this.
It's a
Yeah.
procedure that we need to talk first and read the language that you just read. Give it to your select board members that I can do and speak to them. You give a presentation. They vote to put it on your town warrant to allow all citizens to vote on it. And then if that passes, then it goes to the state house and goes to the state house, goes to the House and then the Senate to get to the governor in 2 years. So it's a little bit of a procedure, but I'm happy to work with you folks and make it happen. So thank you, Anna, for the questions.
Great. Thank
And
you.
we're
Thank
lucky
you.
that we have Michael Loberg, who is on the Island-wide Board of Health, and we have Drew, who stepped in. So obviously there's interest there, and they can probably connect with the other boards of health. I don't want to speak
Yeah,
for them.
I think this is the time to do this. It's the next step to protecting our water. So, if there's no more questions, anybody else have anything they want to talk about as far as anything else that's happening over the last month or going to happen in the next month?
Okay, I'd like to make a request, please, that we address, that we talk about the nitrogen issue at the next meeting, and that we do, as we say, really discuss it in great length, and what can we do to advance our nitrogen reduction capacity. I have a proposal, I have a new website, and I have a proposal there, which I hope that people will look at. I'm going to email everybody it. And, but so far there's been no meaningful action whatsoever taken, even though Michael has definitely worked on the nitrogen issue. It is still costing, it's not acceptable that it's going to cost us $50,000 to reduce our nitrogen per family, per site. It's not acceptable. So it's not a solution at all. So
Yeah.
I wanted to have this, how about the next month's meeting? that
Okay,
we-
why don't you talk to Sherry and you can figure out what you need for your presentation and we can have that discussion. And maybe we can continue this discussion and figure out what our next step is to move this forward too.
Great, after we've reviewed what Laura sends. But
Yeah.
thank you so much, Laura. I know it's a gorgeous day and you probably want to get back out there and finish your projects. But thanks, this was amazing. It's really important. So thank you.
Well, it means a lot to me that you reached out because you're part of the same environment, and we're all penetrating ourselves. And I think we can just lessen our own impact, and it would be lovely to just come down and keep this going. So thank you for the opportunity. This is the beginning, and it will be a road, but in order to create the success, we need to go down this road. So it would be an honor to do it with you folks. So
Great.
let's plan on, potentially June, getting on an agenda or 2 or 3. That's fine with me. And so think about which boards, which towns, things like that to start. And then start this journey. Do you guys mostly have town meetings in the spring?
Yeah, we've had is there any more left? There's 1 or 2 left.
Spring already? How about in the fall?
I think they're already talking about special town meetings coming up in the fall.
Special town meetings. There it is. So
This'll be
maybe we
exciting.
start to give presentations to the towns that have special town meetings in the fall.
Yeah.
That
I
would be
think
great.
That makes
Be
sense.
lovely. So
thank you.
thank you again. Stay in touch with me. Really, hit me up. I'm here. You're on my
Sure.
mind and in my radar. And it's as easy as changing the name from Orleans to, Tisbury, another town, So thank you.
Appreciate your passion on this. It's pretty amazing.
Well,
All right.
get close. It'll rub off on you too.
All right.
Thank-
If we're all done with everything, let's call it a day and go outside.
Perfect. Sounds like